for me. Okay, we're live. I am here with Ari and Bethany. We are, well, I am sad. Uh because Gentleman Jack has just been canceled by HBO. BBC, have we heard anything from BBC at all?
No.
There's rumors, speculation that BBC may talk to Sally, but mm,
Yeah.
nothing exact, nothing set in stone.
Just on the American side, HBO is,
It's completely done with production of Gentleman Jack. Yes,
which is where a lot of their funding came from for some of the big costumes and the sets. And so unless they can get like a larger buyer like Netflix or something like that, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I had tweeted about it and somebody had responded that she thought it was because of how high the budget was. And she even speculated that she thought Game of Thrones was like saving money, or sorry, HBO was saving money, wanting to save money for like an upcoming Game of Thrones project, maybe even.
That's a possibility.
could be.
You know, with the pandemic, it's hard to say what the final nail in the coffin was, but going almost 2 years.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say almost 2 years between season 1 and season 2. You lose a lot of the fan base in between, and then like my neighbor lady, I had to tell her that it was on. She goes, "Oh, I didn't know it was on." And there was lack of advertising. If it wasn't for the fandom, a lot of people wouldn't even have known that it was back on.
Yeah, did it get like any promotional? I mean, I'm sure they promoted it. I really don't remember a big promotional push for season 2 at all.
No, when I put on HBO Max, the actual seasons were under the title Good Friendships. And I think that's what kind of confused
and not
LGBTQ to get that attraction. And even when they started to push out new releases, it didn't give them that platform that it really needed, because Gentleman Jack changed lives. And not just Sally Wainwright's fantasy and story and just characters, but Ann Lister herself and Ann Walker and everyone else that has been involved in the project and who is mentioned in the diaries has a reflection and has changed so many people for it to come out, even those who have been in the closet. And this show has impacted thousands around the world, and to have them not be transparent to that, and it was very underrated in the United States. And that was the hardship of it, is trying to get that out there and it not have that amplifying tune or that voice for such a remarkable woman and her story and her life and those people involved in it.
Yeah, I agree. We've got somebody in the chat saying HBO can suck their dildo. Yeah,
exactly.
It's so, as you said, it's so remarkable that it's also just equally disappointing that there wasn't more, like you said, made of it. And I just want to let the audience know that you two are really sort of entrenched in this world. You do work over at insearchofannwalker.com. Yes. And can you tell our viewers a little bit about what you do?
I am an associate researcher for Ann Walker. There are some that are transcribers, and a little bit of us do different pieces. So there's always a project going. And I am currently working on Harriet Dyson, who was part of the financial committee to Ann Walker from a point in her life up to the time of her death, where she was able to control what Ann Walker did with her money and that it wasn't squandered. So I am in the relics of that, working on that project to have that bio come out. And when In Search of Ann Walker does those associate profiles, and there's so many of them, and there's so many of us that are involved, and we eat, sleep, and drink AW, and it's like, it's in our veins. It really is. And sometimes we wake up and we're just like, oh yeah, there's that individual, there's that date, and every little bit counts.
And the confusing part is there's a lot of people named Ann, and there's a lot of people with the same first and last name, because people would be, they would honor a relative by naming their child after that person. And then in some cases, they would have a child who only lived to be age 2, and then they'd have another child and they'd give it the same name.
It's like
So,
reading the Old Testament when I read the
yeah,
diaries.
Yeah.
Who is
they
this?
were,
Is this the old one, the aunt, or the young one? Like there's like 5
yeah.
different
Yes,
people to be.
yes.
And the hard part is too, the records, there's so much, and the West Yorkshire Archives is where a lot of, well, it's where the Anne Lister diaries are kept. And it was a year ago in October, Ari, that they found Anne Walker's diary, and season 2 actually overlapped the diaries of Anne Walker, and none of her diaries were used in the series. And it's really sad because there was time to incorporate those in there. And it's interesting to see because you have both perspectives and how they viewed the same situation. And it's interesting because
Can you talk to us a little bit about what you think season 2 was missing as far as Anne Walker's perspective?
Oh, I have some ideas. Go ahead. You go first.
I think what it's missing a lot of Anne Walker is just there isn't so much to know. And I know what it is that there's no face or picture to her. It's just an assumption. And there's always mystery behind Anne Walker. And there's that bias that, that go, Mariana and that go Anne Walker. And there's that split divide. And then there's also the difference of the personality. And I think what the season 2 had was a real bit of the actual Anne Lister, and everyone was disappointed to see that what happened to this soft romantic ability of Anne Lister when in all reality she really was that cold. She was very strict, very much she wanted to be done with it. She didn't hold on to any ill will, like she wouldn't be angry for long, she'd just be over it in a heartbeat and then keep on going and be a step ahead of everybody. And I think that's what really threw people off was,
I think
oh man, Anne Lister is such a, and then
Saran Jones played it very, very accurately. She did a phenomenal job.
Well, people were saying they thought she played season 2 differently than season 1. Do you think that's like a bad take that it was just
no? She played it the way the real Anne Lister was, and that was the difference. Season 1 had Anne Lister as, she's more of a sympathetic character. You see, her as a woman trying to make her way in a man's world, and that's entirely true. But because she had to make her way in a man's world, she also built up a shell around her in a way. And, she tried to be Teflon. And now as a married couple, she took on that 18th century, 19th century role of what a husband was expected to do. And that's where I think a lot of people in our day and age, they assume that there's this equal partnership, and in a lot of ways it was, but Anne Lister took on the husband role, and that was accurate for that time. And we put too much of our own, goggles on for something that happened 200 years ago.
Since we are talking about like there being differences between season 1 and season 2, and I feel like I can tell you two are like really into season 2, which I was really into season 2 as well, but I just kind of can see where some of the criticism is coming from, just from like a flat casual fan being entertained perspective. And obviously the three of us are not like casual by any means, but I'm wondering if you think, even though it did give us this even more accurate picture of Anne Lister, did it also hurt us getting a season 3? Did people drop off halfway through?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did so because there wasn't so much promotion as the first one had, and they built it up to be this whole romantic spiel on, there's always a bias and always a stereotype to lesbian stories. There's always one that dies in the end. and want, they're always unhappy endings. They're always tragic. And that's why I sometimes avoid a lot of LGBTQ content, because I don't want to see that, because that is not necessarily how lives can be depicted between same-sex relationships. And so when they put that in there, they gave that relish, that fantasy, like, oh, they kissed on the hill, they embraced, that's it, you're gonna marry me, let's go do this. And then they settled, and then those real personas came out, and I think that conflicted a lot of people to the view. And they were like, I watched the first episode, and that was a lot of the conflict, was, oh, maybe I'll give episode 2, season 2 a chance. And then they died off because they started to see that angry Anne, that real hard Anne Lister that she was. And what I always joked about, and what her and I always laughed about, was Saran Jones is this tall drink of water, gorgeous woman. She depicts this character great, but we had to put into perspective that the real Anne Lister was only 5'5". And
I didn't know that.
Putting this perspective of these images and the story into the season, and to watching these scenarios, that we kind of laugh and go, now the real Anne Lister was 5'5", this little ball of dynamite. But and again, Saran does it beautifully, depicting that anger, but also that soft part, because I'm an empath, and reading Anne Lister's diary, you feel her energy. You feel that emotion. You feel that anger, that when she's had enough nonsense of the Rawsons, because a lot of it is a lot of her businesses, and of the coal, of the rock quarries, the bank.
I was angry too.
I
was like,
the
stop
hotel.
stealing her coal.
Yeah, definitely. And
they thought they could get away with it, and that part is so accurate, and how she dealt with it. That's the real end. And what I was so looking forward to, and I think a lot of people in the community, that when I say the community, the Gentleman Jack fandom, were really hoping for, was an extended honeymoon, that we were going to get to see them in their honeymoon period. And it was just brushed over. And I know a lot of it was because of the COVID restrictions, and with Sophie Rendell having her baby, and that we all understand that. But it was just, they were on their honeymoon for months. It wasn't just a few weeks, even. It was months, and they went all over the place. What
did we get? We got like one episode,
and not even a full episode, because you have the Soudens and their dumb pigs.
It was kind of like rushed, which that like came to nothing.
It's like,
and it really didn't exist, because Sam Souden was actually very proud of Thomas, and he wanted Thomas to go to school. He wanted Thomas
college.
He put him through college, and he wanted him to be something. So we were kind of thrown by that storyline.
The real family complained, right?
Yes,
I wonder if that is why it came to nothing.
That's what I was just gonna say. They were like, "This is not accurate," and I get it. When anytime you add, big production companies like HBO, there's an expectation that it's going to be full of drama, and I based on a true story. But when you're playing with real people, there's repercussions too, because their families,
why didn't they just make up a fictional character? I guess that wouldn't match kind of how everything else has been so real.
Yeah. Or why even add it at all, really?
Yeah, was that necessary? It got a lot of talk. It did create buzz, I think.
Yeah. I personally would have rather seen more of Anne and Anne on their honeymoon, because in Anne Walker's diary, she's a foodie. She is a food critic, and she loves her poulet. She loves her chicken.
Yeah.
And she had was it watermelon or strawberries?
Strawberries
for the first time when they were over in Europe, and so she talks about it, and she loves hedgehogs.
Yeah,
and there's just like these cute little things that we were kind of picturing Sophie Rendell, doing, and giving some shade. She was talking about
they really made that, because I'm thinking back to when they were traveling, showing the honeymoon. First of all, I don't feel like they emphasized that it was a honeymoon for them.
No, they didn't. It was almost like it was a little trip.
Yeah, it was like a weekend getaway or something.
Yeah. We're gonna go climb
And
a
then
mountain
part
next weekend. Let's do this.
Let's go to the Alps. Let's go.
very
Did you know that
such a
there's
lesbian thing to
also
do though.
a group that follows Ann Lister's actual footsteps to the top of different mountains? There's people here in the U.S. and in Europe. They get together once a year to ascend different summits that Ann Lister did, and it's I don't know. Do they raise money for charity doing it? I'm not.
I don't recall.
Sure.
I don't want to say
Do you
they
know the
do
name?
to misquote the medal, but
Oh, right.
yes, there's very much authenticity to Ann Lister's footsteps, and there's
even a
books.
peak named after her.
Yes,
Wow.
Yeah.
a road. There's a road in France
Yes.
named after her.
Why? Oh, that's awesome. So why do you
Yeah.
think the show condensed the honeymoon, didn't even really describe it to us as a honeymoon? And you're
Our
right. I think
personal
that
thought
absolutely. No, go ahead.
is COVID restrictions, travel restrictions, and with Sophie Rundle being pregnant, maybe different scenes they weren't able to shoot in a certain way. But I feel like there's ways that they could have, done
Got
it. Yeah,
I didn't even like Killing Eve had the same problem. I didn't even notice. They
yeah,
still showed us, Russia and all that. Like I didn't have any
yeah,
problem with that.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of like decisions the show made, a lot of fans have talked about the show's decision to start season 1 like in the Ann Walker years instead of now. You two are very much on the Ann Walker side of things, but do you kind of agree with the fan base like that the show started a little bit too late, or do you actually like that the show started where they started?
Go ahead.
I think it was a bit conflicting to know because they did meet before when Ann Walker was younger, and that was like way years before, especially when her parents had died, and then John had died, and then everybody. But then she really didn't take into interest until 1834, and that was the real focus because that time period was Sally's strongest period where she actually started to enjoy Ann Lister really in that time period and frame, and where especially where she wanted to go because she wanted to go all the way up into the seasons up to Anne's death and even after that,
Yeah.
after that fact. And then to have new our research group in search of Ann Walker, and then Packed with Potential, and when everyone coincides and puts together into projects, they always want a bit of that added. And I think it's what's conflicting is if they did that, it would confuse a lot, and it may being an older woman because Anne is an much older woman, and it would have probably been like, ooh, man. And so they've already have given her a label as being a predator when many do. And I'll look at these groups, and some people would have that opinion that would make Ann Lister a predator towards Ann Walker. Like, she's vulnerable, but
Is it
she was,
because she met her when Ann Walker was so young
yeah,
that you think? Okay.
yeah. And I think it was
But the
because she was
diaries
young.
in the diaries, I mean, it's very clear. She has like no anything until Ann Walker's like in her lower 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So you two wouldn't classify Ann Lister as like predatory or anything.
No, not at
She was
all.
very much
Yeah.
in love with Mariana. In fact, you know, I don't believe that we all get just one chance at love. I believe that Mariana was Anne's love. They loved each other. They had that connection. But at the same time, just like any person
Mariana
who
or Ann
grows,
Walker?
huh?
Mariana or
Mariana, both.
I believe
Both
she loved them both. Yeah, but with Mariana, that was young love, and it was true love, and they loved each other. But the dynamics of both of their situations at that time, Anne hadn't gotten Shibden yet. Mariana, that one scene where they're discussing that, and it's very, very emotional because I would say that that's probably, very much the emotion that the two women had. But then, you get to a certain place in your life as both of us are, we're 40, 41. And so we're similar age to Ann Lister. And, you kind of get to that point in your life and you're like, well, I've got knowledge, I've got, new life experiences, and somebody else comes into your life and you can handle that. You can handle that where maybe 20 years ago, that wasn't an option. But it doesn't it doesn't mean that the love between her and Mariana was lesser, or I believe that she loved both women very, very much.
The chat is saying Sally Wainwright saw Gentleman Jack as a trilogy.
Yeah, she actually was looking, and if it was to go by the diaries and by the years, because the seasons are done 2 years by 2 year span.
Yeah.
And she was looking at it to be, if it was to go to how many seasons up to her death, it would be 4. There would be 4 seasons that would be the end of Ann Lister's life, where she dies in Europe, in Georgia, which is now Russia. But but she wanted to go further than that. And even in the aspect of how I would tell her, I'm like, well, at this point, Aunt Anne and Captain Lister would be gone, already gone. And then the aspect of Argus was around for a time period. Argus really did exist. And a lot of people are like, Argus, they were like, well, did Anne really have a dog named Argus? Yes. She really did have a dog named Argus. And they also had a little black dog named Tiny. And Anne Walker had a little dog named Tiny. And then Anne Walker did have a horse. And they had, they did have a slew of animals.
And Mariana was obsessed with chickens, right?
Yeah, the chickens. And,
which I find really funny, because Anne Walker loved to eat chickens. And I can't remember if is it Bickapop? Yeah. She's got a really funny cartoon where it shows Mariana looking for one of her chickens, and it shows Anne Walker eating the chicken.
Yes. So and Anne Walker, what may have not been the greatest chef ever, especially in the diary where Ann Lister makes a remark of how many eggs she cooked while they were overseas, and maybe a month-old goose egg. So she was like, I've got an iron stomach, why not?
and you eat your wife's cooking just because.
Yeah. And
that's a thing.
That was, what made it just hilarious, because again, when you go back to the diaries, you feel that emotion. But then at that point when Anne and Anne were together, and where that scene is, how Dr. Kenny is sitting there and telling her, oh well, she's got the melancholy. There was also word that at that point, Anne Walker had lost someone died that she was engaged to. So
they didn't mention that in season 1.
They didn't mention that engagement or the man to a man, to that man passing away, because there's little known about it. They don't know who the man is. I've tried myself looking up who the man is, and especially the reference to Dr. Kenny. And Dr. Kenny wasn't very much a simpleton. He was very well-known medical brain doctor.
Is this the same doctor that Marion comes to fall for, or no?
Well, she didn't really fall for him. He was the one from season 1 that tells Marion to bring Ann Lister back from Denmark because Anne's dying.
Yeah,
and then
okay, so that's different than the person she wants to marry. There's two different.
He's the carpet guy.
No, Mr. Abbott, John Abbott.
I'm getting everybody mixed up from the diaries.
They were briefly engaged.
They really were engaged.
But Mr. Abbott would actually die single, and he left $5,000 to charities and animal shelters and things like that. So he was single when he passed away, and he left his 5,000 pounds to whoever he chose to leave it to. So they were briefly engaged, and she would go back to Market Wheaton and live her life there. And that was what's so heartbreaking, was that moment with Gemma Whalen and Saran Jones, why she told her, you marry Mr. Abbott, you won't be remembered, you'll be forgotten. And that's really the aspect of it. And they really stopped talking after that. There was really no, once they came back from their honeymoon, Marion was just kind of like, I'm done. She was done because of that complex of the.
It's okay for you to have your fun and go do what you want to do.
It seems like you guys are in touch with Sally. Is that?
No. I am not. I do know. I've interacted with Gemma Whalen. I've interacted with a couple of the people from the show, but Lydia and Lydia Leonard is fantastic as Mariana.
She's very good to her fans.
Very
She's
awesome.
awesome.
To her
I love her.
people.
I'm so sad that we won't be seeing
I
her.
love her in general.
Do you guys think there's a chance another network will pick this up?
Fingers crossed. Like it is a brilliant. It's Sally Wainwright's passion. It really is, and so many people are committed to it. And Saran Jones and
she wants to come back.
Sophie Rundle would come back in a heartbeat. They said
do.
they would do it if it comes back.
I mean, the
and they all
BBC
do
does interesting stuff all the time. They do like random movies. They
do, and that's what I said. They could do like a 2.5 hour, wrap up.
Give us a little wrap up.
Yeah, because like even in the series they make Captain Sutherland the villain in season 2.
Right.
He's basically the bad villain and stuff. But he's really he's typical for his time. Mm-hmm. He's not a negative caricature of a man.
But I think we really needed that for the show.
Like, they did for drama.
They did.
It makes Ann Lister look more like the hero.
Yeah.
It also makes Ann Walker look like the hero in season 2. She really comes into her own, and I feel like Ann Lister kind of lets her come into her own.
Yes. And then for a time, Captain Sutherland eventually moves into Shibden when Ann Walker goes through her her mental health crisis.
That's after Ann Lister has died, right?
Yeah. Yes, Ann Lister's already dead.
Yeah,
Elizabeth Sutherland is dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He went to go get Ann Walker when Ann Lister passed away to meet her. He went to London, and in search of Ann Walker, Diane, the harder researcher, the core researchers, found evidence of their passports, that they had gotten passports too, wow. Because Ann Walker returned to Shibden while Ann Lister was still on a packet. So even though she was back at Shibden, Ann Lister was still at sea, waiting to be returned to England.
Is it 6 months?
6 months.
6 months it took for the body to come back, because that was kind of a rare thing.
Than we saw on the show. What do you two think we would see, or what would you want to see if the BBC did do like a wrap-up movie?
I would like to see the actual connection between Anne and Anne, because the two women, there was ups and downs, but in general, overall, they really loved and cared about each other, and I would have loved to see more affectionate moments between them. I'm a sucker for happy endings. I know that Ann Lister passes away and all that stuff. I get that, but and then the other,
like a happy ending.
But at least
not a long marriage, but nothing. Yeah,
at least long in the 1800s. Yeah, they got to be together, and their travels. Oh my gosh, like there are amazing researchers out there right now who are coming up with travel books in the footsteps of Ann Lister. Just going to on her travel journeys would make an excellent wrap up.
To see them travel a lot, that would be cool.
Yeah,
and they did, because Ann Lister didn't know how to fix anything for Ann Walker when she would have her fits and her melancholy, because she still had a homophobia towards herself.
Right.
And Ann Lister in her diaries, she was so confused at how to fix it that her only answer was to travel. And it was really hard, and it really tugs at the heartstrings to see Ann Lister just be torn between how do I understand this, because she's going through something, and she's a woman who wants to physically fix it. And this is a case where she can't physically fix it. She can only get the best doctor she can know from other country, from another city, from anywhere.
But they do enjoy their travels.
And they do.
And they have some interesting diary entries, about the food, the architecture that they see. There's even an entry about Ann Lister measuring a bridge with her umbrella to
Oh
see how
my
big
God.
it was.
That's so Ann Lister.
And
Yeah,
and
the chat
Ann
is asking,
Walker at a market judging cat skins. Like cat skins are hanging and she's throwing shade at cat skins. I mean, the thing
oh,
about
that's
Ann
so
Walker's
good.
in her diaries, and there's a comparison on the In Search of Ann Walker site,
a
where
day-by-day
a
comparison.
day-by-day comparison up to the point of the year where Ann Walker stops. And she's such a shopaholic. She spends money left and right. Like, this is mine.
She talks
There's
about
a
buying
lot for the
things.
show to explore, is what I'm getting from you
Yeah,
two. There's a lot
yeah,
to
there's so much more
Now-
to Ann Walker than people see her as just this sad, unsettling individual. But when she was healthy, she was like, I want this. I want to buy this. I want to
Yeah.
buy this, like, you know,
The blue spectacles.
yeah, the
She
blue,
she
blue
wanted a pair of
glasses,
blue spectacles.
blue spectacles.
So I bought it.
Oh
We
my
both have a
God.
pair of blue Ray-Ban
Oh,
sunglasses
that's
in honor of
cool.
Ann Walker.
Okay, so we haven't talked a ton about why what we did at the beginning. We mentioned how much it costs. Are there other reasons? And then the promotion. Are there other reasons HBO canceled? I mean, we talked about the pandemic. It's certainly not the actors wanting
No,
not wanting
it's
to.
not the actors. Honestly, I just believe that it's such a niche show where it doesn't have a huge wide fan base. You know, there's specific people that are interested in the show, like history nerds
Too neat
like me,
for the money
history
it
nerds.
costs, you think? Is that the
What?
issue? If you're an HBO executive, is it that the market is too small for how much money they're spending on it?
Bottom line, it's all about money.
It is about money.
Money and revenue.
Mhm.
And I believe that, you know, like I said, the costumes, you know, the sets, the scenery. I mean, like they filmed at Shibden, and Shibden itself is so old. Our friend Karen is one of the
She's a room steward there at
Yeah.
Shibden, and she's also a transcriber.
yes.
And that's all we
Everything's
connect
fragile.
with. Everything is fragile, and the actors were even given word to be careful for the floorboards, because how original the floorboards are. They are, you know,
So they had to recreate a lot of the
So a
rooms
lot
in
more
the
expensive
studio.
than being
Yeah.
on a sound studio in
Yeah,
LA or
yes.
Yeah, there was
wherever.
a lot of recreation
yeah.
in a sound studio, and you know that it's because the pieces of her house, and Sally was so attuned to the detail. Like even if it was a stage, you know, she wanted it to be exactly the way it was at Shibden, and it makes sense. I mean, it shows her dedication. This was a labor of love for Sally.
It makes sense, but devil's advocate, if
Okay.
we go back in time and they make a low budget show, maybe we're not like, maybe it's not getting awards. Maybe it's more cheesy or campy, but it's cheaper and it's really super popular with this niche audience. Do you think we get more seasons? And is it worth it?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mm.
Well, my personal opinion is it's always worth it when you're learning something about history, because I'm a history teacher. But, you know, honestly, if you think about it, 10 years ago, they made a BBC made for TV movie called The Real Diaries of Ann Lister with Maxine Peake.
I haven't watched this. Have you watched it? Oh, hello there.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Blake. This is my
Hey,
son
Blake.
Blake. He's 6. He loves Gentleman Jack.
He does.
Oh,
We
awesome.
skip over certain parts when he's in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he likes Argus. He has all of Argus's books. Argus is a real dog named Rodri, so he has all of Rodri's kid books.
Your breadth of knowledge of this world just blows my mind, honestly.
I really like video games.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
I like it. Hey, where's our Gentleman Jack video game? Come on.
I
Like,
know. It's just,
You know
Ann
what?
Lister
I'd be all
about
for
that.
that, Sims. I mean,
Then you should look
but the Maxine Peake drama. I mean, if you ask anybody who's a fan of Gentleman Jack if they've seen it, they hate it. They
I
hate
haven't
it.
seen it.
It's
Is it terrible? Not good. Okay. I won't
that's
make
just
you
my
say
personal
terrible.
opinion. I am not knocking anybody's artistic work. It's just my
Mhm.
personal opinion.
So
So
that's maybe a little bit of a clue. That's maybe a little bit of a clue into, you're saying like they kind of already did the low budget thing.
sorry.
It's okay.
Yes.
I want thank you, Danielle, for the compliment on my eyes. Somebody's talking about Dairy Girls. Oh, that's because that's who I remind them of. So back to Gentleman Jack. We already had the low budget version. We've talked about them maybe doing a movie. I don't know. I feel like the fan base is just so sad. Sorry, continue.
I would be all for if they did almost like a prequel where they delve into the Anne and Mariana years. And
This is what I was
I can
thinking
honestly
right, too.
say that the team Mariana would probably like that as well.
Totally.
Chantel Smith is the go-to expert on all things Mariana.
Yes.
So if you find her on Twitter and have any questions,
teenage Ann Lister, and we got to see her relationship with Eliza
the
Rain.
Eliza Rain. Yes, there's even a new book about Eliza Rain coming out.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think even I last had seen Helena's looking for someone to produce a book for her, an autobiography, and she's looking for someone to publish her book. And so there's still more resources coming out. There's so much more resources.
Autobiography, like of herself, or
Helena Whitbread
autobiography.
For Ann Lister.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get more books. Like there's already so many out there. We're getting more.
Gentleman Jack, whether it's done and over or we're waiting to see however it goes. There's a Pandora's box that's been opened that's never going to close. Because there's so many people who were captivated by this, and the BBC even did a reality show with individuals who were affected by this show in a positive way, and they was it Ann Lister Changed My Life or something like that?
She's in the book.
I have a book. I was interviewed for a book called The Gentleman Jack Effect by Janet Leigh. My chapter is the very last chapter in the book. But there's and Christine was also interviewed in that, but there's probably 50 or 60 women all around the world, and men.
How did this affect you?
There are Mr. Listers out there.
Okay, I love it. I love that. I was wondering how the fan base would accept a prequel that doesn't have Saran Jones playing Ann Lister.
Well, maybe she could narrate it.
Yeah, she would narrate it.
She has to narrate it. You two are geniuses. Okay, yes. Saran has to narrate, and then they can get somebody younger to play whatever, the teenage version of her, the younger 20s version of her.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just, that's just details. But as long as she's like she still has to do her opening credit scene, and then maybe she's like just like how she did with Veer Hobart, where she's looking through her journal and she's remembering something.
Goodness. Oh, Veer. Since you brought up that book, why do you think so many people have been so strongly affected by this show?
Because women's voices throughout history have been oppressed. And here's a woman who lived her life on her terms in an era where it was not even thought of that she should be doing any of it. And the fact that, here we are in 2022, and I mean, I'm not going to go into my politics, but I'm very disappointed in the way this country is representing women at the current state. And, you just wonder, like 200 years later, has anything really changed? Do we really...
such a good point you make.
Yeah, do we really have the same voice that we thought we did? And so for me, as a mom of two boys, I've been encouraging them to really, understand what other people go through, not just their white male privilege that they'll have someday, but to use that, by understanding what other people have had to struggle with and haven't just been given their whole life. So we do a lot of volunteer work. We do a lot of, getting involved in the community. In their school and projects, where they have to learn how to get along. And maybe one day that might make a difference. But
I also think the show has had a big impact because there was like kind of this thinking floating around among especially conservative circles that like lesbians didn't exist in the past.
Well, they existed, but it wasn't illegal. That's the
Right,
thing.
and it wasn't called
There
lesbian.
wasn't a word for it. So the term
She was.
lesbian
She was a
didn't
lesbian.
term, and it was normal at that time that if a couple on their honeymoon would bring her lady friend along with her. So it would be three, threes wouldn't be a crowd during the 19th century
Right, how
wedding.
Anne went on Mariana and
Yeah, and Charles.
Charles's honeymoon, yeah.
Yes. So Anne went, Lister went with them on their honeymoon. And the thing is that they described they would wear their nightshirts if women were sleeping together, so they wouldn't get caught right away. They would wear their nightshirts instead of being completely, naked, and they were complicit in it. And that was the thing that existed. And there's so many books on sapphic history, and there's so much out there, especially way, back in, how far it could go with women and sexuality. And I think that's what I love most about history. Me being, I'm working on being a high school history teacher, but right now I teach special education kids, and we have historical blocks. So whatever necessary of France or geographic and education, it's always out there. I'm learning every day, but it's also engaging because not many people understand the effects of LGBTQ or why they would be upset because it's Pride Month. And well, I always bring up, do you know Stonewall? If you really, don't understand what Pride really is about, it's how we've always had to constantly fight. We've always had to be a step ahead and not be micromanaged, because I've heard it. I've been in that male privilege area where people have told me to go, off myself, go do what you want to do. But I'm a person who's living. I have a college education. I'm working on another degree, and it's just wanting to live a normal, life as many. And that's what Ann Lister did for a lot of the communities, for those people who are in the closet and they need that hero, that one that has no boundaries, that has that iron fist and does those, camaraderies of, I'm a woman in the 19th century in a man's world, and I'm not going to abide by that. And that's what she had to do. And she had to be a step ahead of all the men, of course.
I also, some of the things you're saying make me think like, in terms of the impact this has had on our society and on the women live in women community, is like, for you two, you're both history buffs. You're like, there's tons of LGBTQ history. There's so much. Most people don't really like have access to that, or they probably have access, but they don't choose to pursue it. Or maybe it's like, they don't know where to get it from. And this is an HBO mainstream show. So I think that made it so much more exciting. Like, there may be a lot of stuff out there about old timey queer women or, same sex relationships, but like, this is just so in our face. I mean, they didn't do a good job promoting it, but they did. It was such a great show. And yeah.
There's so much out there. In fact, my dad has an extensive collection of Life magazines from the 1930s and 40s. And Ari and I were just going through them, just flipping through them. And I said, if we could make a pile of all the people on the covers who we know today are LGBTQ, I said that stack would be huge. I mean, there's pictures of Eleanor Roosevelt. There's pictures of
Rock Hudson.
All these James Dean even. There's these pictures of these actors, politicians, these famous people. And at the time, Greta Garbo is one. These were the celebrities, the icons. And at the time, they were not known into the community. And I would say, if you ask your average person over the age of 65, did you know that Greta Garbo had a relationship with a woman? They probably wouldn't know that.
Yeah. They were all
So,
they had to, like, they would lose their careers, and that's
Yeah.
another reason this show, I think, has been so popular and meaningful to people like us is, like, it's like, getting to go back in time almost and live with these people, and
yeah,
the fact that Ann Lister kept Ann Walker as well, kept these diaries, and we can put them in front of our eyes in a very like cool, entertaining, make that seem real. Like this world seems so real.
yeah.
Yeah, I think all of it has impacted how much we love this show, this series, these actors, this, these original people, Mariana, Ann Lister, Ann Walker, all of them.
Oh yeah, and we use them in our everyday lives. We probably quote the diary. We quote the show. We go, what would Ann Lister do?
Yeah.
And what it really does is it really puts those who thrive on it, puts a chip on their shoulder to know that they now have more courage because this woman existed and did what she wanted and amplified history for 19th century Halifax, and to know that it grows and it grows. And the thing, even though the show has been canceled for now, until we know for sure, the legacy still goes on. The fans are still there. I'm still there. I will continue to research Ann Walker and bits of Ann Lister and the associates, and there will always be ground. There will always be a fan base. And
the more research that's done, the better the screenplays can be, because the more we expand Ann Lister's world, we get to see these characters as real people, and we don't have to have those made up Souden storylines, because I know about there's times in my daily life, Ari and I we sit there and we're like, we could be on a reality show for the weird.
Yeah. Like around our house, we have Lego, Gentleman Jack scenes everywhere. Like we have the Chaumier.
Yeah.
We've got the she shed.
Yeah, I built a she shed out of Lego.
We've got
God.
Shipton Hall upstairs made out of thousands of pieces of
awesome.
Lego.
It does have Jack Sparrow riding a dragon on the roof right now.
It does, and Spidey is sitting in the tower where the library is now.
You created a Lego Shibden Hall. I am in awe of you. And I think
it's 2 feet long, a foot wide, and a foot and a half tall.
I just am so impressed, and
it even has a doghouse for Argus.
For Argus,
and we have a Lego Argus.
And a Lego Argus, and the family is there.
We have all the characters.
When I came into the picture, she turned me into a Lego, and now I'm outdoor staff. So when the kids play with the Legos, I'm bringing them tea to Captain Lister and at the table. I have a tea trolley.
You really, this world has really become a part of your world, and vice versa. And I think like what you said was a good thing that we can like end the live on, which is for me to send everyone over to insearchofannwalker.com. And like check out all this amazing research, or volunteer.
Diane and Alexa would love
Get
to have more
involved.
volunteers.
We accept anybody, because there's always a project open, and you don't even need to know that much. We'll teach you. We have so many resources, and especially there'll be a blog out of even Captain Sutherland. And again, we always discuss what is real from reality to TV, and all the character and their their personas. So it's all there, and we welcome anybody who wants to be a part of it.
Men too.
Men too. We'll take the Mr. Listers.
All the Mr. Listers and all the non-Mr. Listers, go over to insearchofannwalker.com, and really cool opportunities going over there. I can tell that it's like just greatly in a positive way impacted the two of your lives.
Yeah. That's how we became best friends. And it's been a plus for both of us. We're both going through very difficult divorces, both of us, and just having somebody to help me, and just a positive person, and we build each other up. And I think that's the whole point of doing this project, is just being positive and building each other up, because, you know, it doesn't seem like the rest of the world wants to do that right now.
Yeah, we need more stronger women personas in this world, and I think that really reflects too. And I hate hearing when women feel down on themselves, because I'm always there to say, no, you know,
We got this.
we got this. Don't ever, you know,
And I
go
think a
on
lot of people
fearlessly.
are I think a lot of people are down today because of the cancellation. But I think we've talked about a lot of positive things that could happen. We could get a prequel. This could still continue. Who knows what BBC is going to do? You know, all the people
Never
involved.
give up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
never give up. Exactly. So I think that's a good note to end the live on. I want to
Thank
thank
you
both
for
of you
having us,
for
Amanda.
coming on. Yeah, I've just had so much fun. I feel like you two could talk about this world
Come
for
down
like
to the beach. We'll talk about it at the
years.
beach.
Please, I need to go to the beach right now. Okay. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching. Ari, Bethany, thank you so much. Would love to talk to you again sometime, because I just know you have so much
Anytime.
knowledge.
We'll have dogs and kids always.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always down.
Okay, and everybody, viewers, make sure you stay tuned for a video. Probably going to be a 2 or 3 parter I'm doing that will kind of be a lot of what we've been talking about. I want to break down the differences between the show and the books or the diaries, the research that we have. So yeah, but everybody, thanks for watching, and I will see you next video.
Bye.